How are you, man? What's going on?
Good. Just watching my hair grow, trying to get the Mavs get a win, and trying to have fun with all the crypto stuff.
Yeah. You've been diving in deep. We've been talking, a little bit more lately. It's good to see you getting deeper, and some of your posts and content. It seems like the crypto Twitter is really enjoying it. It's fun to see. But so a lot going on. I think we're going to get into the crypto stuff. There he is. There's the video.
Pretty soon I'll be there in man bun territory.
Yeah, nice. What do you mean NBA protocol? You can't get a haircut?
The games. If I'm going to be one of the people who's allowed to travel with the team, I have to quarantine in my house and only go to certain places that have been approved.
Okay.
And the players, same thing. And when they're on the road, they have to stay in their hotel room except for very specific circumstances and to go to the game. It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
That's a bummer. Well, that kind of ties me to, I think, the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is, it feels to me, and I think a lot of people on the internet right now, the internet culture seems to be colliding with real world culture in different ways, and in some cases overtaking it, right? I think Wall Street Bets taking down a big hedge fund, a good recent example of that. And some people, look at it and say, well, coronavirus, everyone is cooped up, behind their computers. And when that gets better, things are going back to normal. I'm curious what you think. As someone that's, a student of the internet, you clearly see what's going on, but also you have a big presence in the real world.
Yeah, I think the pandemic had a lot to do with the acceleration, but it's not going back. And what it wasn't necessarily normal. It's just what it was. I think cryptos had an impact on culture. More, and that's been growing, and it's no longer just about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was really the only story, and what was the price of Bitcoin was the driving topic all the time. But what we've seen over the past through the summer, really with DeFi and other things, as NFT and Topshots and unique blockchains, we're finally now seeing applications that the consumers are getting their arms around. It wasn't like CryptoKitties was here for 6 minutes and then it was gone. Now you're seeing one thing after the other, and with DeFi creating money-making opportunities for those people sitting at home without jobs and a place to use their stimulus checks, I think that's kind of changed the game.
For sure. Yeah, we're going to get into crypto. So I want to ask one more question just about kind of internet culture and your engagement, which I find really interesting, which I think, we're seeing this trend now of, billionaires, right? People has become a derogatory term, and most people of your stature, right, are either staying off the internet or getting memed off the internet, right? We saw what happened with Steve Cohen last week, and right. It seems like you, more than really anyone in the world, can connect with people on the internet in a positive way, for someone of that stature. And I'm curious, I feel like this could be an important trend over the next 10 years of this kind of, tension between haves and have-nots. And I'm wondering if there's some insights you have or something you could share about how you're able to do that.
I was broke for a long time. That's what it comes down to, and, I still got my, when you make a lot of money initially, people always think you're going to change, right? And your family acts different. They don't know how to react to you. Your friends don't know how to react. And then eventually they realized I was just the same dickhead I always was, right? And the size of my bank account, I've never really let define me. I've let it create opportunities. And so if people want to fuck with me online, whether it was, in 2000, when, or in the mid 90s when message boards, but let me even go further back in the 80s when there were CompuServe and Prodigy message boards and AOL and UUNet for all the old timers out there, right? And I was the young kid, just like people are getting on Wall Street Bets, talking down the man, right? I was fucking with everybody back then. Then we got to AOL and Prodigy, and I was fucking with people there. Then we got to the Yahoo message boards, and I was fucking with people there. There's just, and then I bought into the NBA, and I was fucking with people there. Then I got on media, and I was fucking with people there, right? It's just, I'm just who I am, and, I like to challenge, and I like to be challenged, right? So when I go out there, it's not so much for me to say, okay, here, I'm right and you're wrong. It's like if you read my blog blog posts. I always, almost always end it with, well, tell me your thoughts, right? Am I right or wrong? Because, I learn by people questioning me. And so, I enjoy it. I enjoy the competitive side of being right versus wrong, and I like to learn. And by doing all those things, it makes me a better entrepreneur.
That makes a lot of sense. I think I think a lot of people in crypto can relate to a lot of that, right? Because crypto started as this very grassroots thing that was just internet native and people on message boards believing in this thing, and we're now seeing the belief grow, but it is very much kind of this people-led movement, right? And you probably remember, I don't know if you remember when we met in Vegas,
Yep.
the first time when, I told you kind of my view on the world, and kind of this idea that the big trend here is this shift in power from institutions to people. And so do you, and it feels like it's happening. Do you see that?
Well, look, you went to Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
You went to something that had, as opposed to, and you fought the trend on Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody was Bitcoin at that time, and you went in a different direction. And I'm sure you got a lot of shit for that. A lot of people questioned you as well, and you're turning out to be right. And going back to 2012, I remember getting into arguments with people about that people would tell me I didn't get it because I was like, blockchain's great. Look, I wrote database applications in my first company. I wrote distributed database applications. I was a systems integrator that wrote software, and I, did stuff with Lotus Notes, with replication, which was one of the first distributed databases, where you replicated everything and et cetera, et cetera. But in any event, and so when Bitcoin came out, I saw the value of blockchain and just, the decentralization of blockchain and the lack of ownership and the value there, right? But everybody was talking about Bitcoin as a currency, and there was no way it was going to be a currency, right? In my mind. And that's where I always had these big disagreements. And even up until recently, when I talked about the utility of gold, the utility of Bitcoin and bananas, I'd rather have bananas because there's more utility. I didn't say value, I said utility. I can eat a banana.
Yeah.
And so I like the shit I get about that. So
the media loves to write about Mark Cuban and Bitcoin, right? It's the best way to go viral. He loves it. He hates
yeah,
it.
and it's not even so much what I say. It's just the fact they know me because of Shark Tank and they want something with it, right?
Yeah.
And the whole bananas thing, I knew I would get shit for it, but it was fun. But the underpinning of that was Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies is a misnomer, and it always has been. They're crypto assets.
Yep.
Crypto assets have more utility than others. And what's changed, particularly since the summer or spring, I guess you can say, is that utility is starting to become evident, and that's starting to pay dividends to a lot of people who are able to understand it via DeFi, right? And that's the one, with all the yield farming and everything and all the new tokens. It's like the early days of the internet where people are just throwing out URLs and businesses and, let's see what sticks. And the stock prices were going up, and some were actually even, doing good business. It's very comparable because people are still trying to figure it all out, right? All the different tokens, all the different applications. And so to me, that's what's really changed, and that's why you've seen me get active recently, whereas before I didn't. And, I still don't believe that this is an alternative, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of them, is an alternative to fiat. Right? Fiat's, not going away for any time soon. I don't see it as a currency. I don't see it as a hedge any more than gold, So there's a certain religious aspect of Bitcoin, to your point about believing. But now Bitcoin is getting derivative utility because of what's happening with wrapping and, enabling it for DeFi and collateralization and pooling and all these things. And that is truly changing the game. And now we're to the point, like the early internet, where we can start talking about applications that truly change finance and really democratize things for everybody.
For sure. I think, yeah, when we met, I think I said, Bitcoin is fuck the Fed and Ethereum is fuck the SEC, right?
And now I think it's more, Ethereum is more fuck the banking system,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm working on things now in other applications, like right now where, we're trying to collateralize Aave to use it as collateral for a deal in Portugal, right? Because they wanted some collateralization, and it's far easier to do that than it is to get a line of credit to deal with that bank.
Yeah, you should talk to MakerDAO too. We've got Rune from Maker jumping on later, and they're doing something similar. This idea of collateralizing real world assets and giving.
Yeah. Everybody's trying to tokenize everything right now. And real estate's the first starting point because it typically doesn't go down in value. Or when it does, it's rare, right? And so it's much easier to collateralize, assuming that you own whatever it is fully and clearly, right? There's no opposing mortgage. So I mean, everybody's going to try to tokenize everything.
Yep.
Everything. And that's going to be part of the rush that, 95%, 99% of them are going to fail at because it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my view, I think we've talked about this, but, there was a wave in 2017 too of like security tokens, right? And people saw the ICO mania and they said, look, we've got real world assets. Let's tap into them. Right. And that didn't work because the crypto people don't want real world assets, right? They want internet native assets and they want innovation. And so I think at some point that stuff will work, but really the most interest and excitement and growth in our portfolio right now is not as much the real world assets, but these new crypto native assets, right? Which I know you've been paying attention to more, things like super rare digital art or, crypto kitties.
Topshot, all of them.
So that's, I think in the long term, it's like, maybe everything will be, all real world assets will be on a blockchain, but our view for the next, couple of years, the stuff that's going to be most successful is probably going to be this new crypto native stuff, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, because kids growing up today are digital native. Right. And they're also crypto native, look how long, Bitcoin has been around and, Ethereum is now been around, a long time, relatively speaking as well. And so, kids value digital items more than they value analog items. And that's, when I say kids, Gen Z now, which is into their 20s, and maybe younger millennials, this is all normal to them. When they grew up, they weren't thinking about CDs. And even though that's digital, but they weren't thinking about those physical devices. They were thinking about, downloadable music. How much music can I store, right? How much video can I store? Everything that I touch on social media is digital, right? Even, the brands that I look for, I value them based off of their digital presence and, who's wearing them on Instagram, not what's happening in real life. And real life is, you're locked in a room right now. And so that digital valuation is accelerating even more. And so I think you're right in that, whether it's digital art, whether it's digital trading, whatever, card moments, whatever it may be, anything that you can create digitally. Now, the big question becomes digital assets that have been sold in traditional methods like music. Right? What happens there? Because how are they going to, music, once you start getting artists making their content available, or even movies for that matter, making their content available online, their new music online, and they're able to, to sell it in a marketplace and continue to make a percentage every time it's resold, right?
Yeah.
Katie barred the door.
Yeah.
I mean, for the longest time, you could buy, used movies, used DVDs and used CDs and used LPs, right? You can buy used anything. And the originator, the creator never got anything for it, right? Just the idea now, like when I put the stuff online on Rarible, and it or whether it was Rarible, Mintable, and it was on OpenSea, right? And I got to keep on getting paid every time it's sold as the price went up.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, oh my God, I have seen the future, and it is all things digital, because that changes the motivation of every creator of everything digital. Because for the first time ever, they can keep on getting paid forever.
For sure.
Forever. And so it's not so much about the number of people who see my hear my music or see my video, but I mean, Imagine if you put something on OpenSea and it's, you know, a one of a kind and you let everybody buy it. Well, I guess you could, you know, or you, OpenSea's not there yet. You guys hopefully will be there. But
we're there, we're there. Yeah, we're there.
so you know what I'm saying? So let's say it's on Rarible or Mintable, and then I
Yeah.
do, you know, 5 million copies of this MP3, right? And I price them all at a quarter, right? Or 50 cents. It doesn't, you know, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm making $1 million when those 2 million units sold, and I'm fine with everybody selling it. And, you know, if the radio station wants to play it, they got to at least buy one, right? If, you know, whoever wants to use it, they've got to buy one. And it's the same, instead of putting it on YouTube to get my millions of views, because, you know, maybe I care if it goes to Spotify, maybe I don't. You know, maybe I come up with a second one that says, okay, this is the commercial version, and I'm only going to sell it to commercial users, and there's only 100 of them, and they're $25,000 a piece. And in order to play it on your radio station, you will, you know, you have to buy this version.
Right.
Bam.
Yeah.
Right. It's a whole different game. And same with YouTube videos, same with podcasts, same with everything, because the, you know, the things that we value the most, you know, other than our homes, you know, that we own, the things that we own that we value the most, other than maybe homes and cars, and some, you know, some jewelry or whatever, is digital.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, even in the past week or so, we're hearing, you know, Super Rare and OpenSea, we're hearing from musicians, and, you know, the culture is coming, right? Especially the music is an interesting one, because, you know, musicians that rely on shows, right, have been hit really hard in the last year, right? So they need new business models. And
this is it 100%.
Yeah.
Like for us, the tickets at the Maverick, tickets effectively are digital, right? You might have a physical ticket, but the scanning and everything, that's falling out of favor. And so for me to do tickets, now I can make money on the resale market. Bam, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I have complete control of it. You know, creating digital everything, all the highlights that we do, creating tokens to, you know, to incent people to do different things. It's just, the game has changed, and that's why you've seen me get so into it. Now, there's still a lot of bullshit, and there's still a lot of entrepreneurial uncertainty, like who are the winners going to be?
Yep.
You know, private blockchains like Flow, open block, you know, even though they say they're open source, but, you know, more open blockchains,
Yeah.
you know, Max or whatever, you know.
For sure.
I don't know.
And we've talked about this a little bit too, that, you know, I think it's still early for consumerization, right? It's like, these products are crypto native, and the crypto people can understand MetaMask and can, you know, and is okay paying the fees, right? But for RLP Day today, we actually used OpenSea. We minted a piece of digital art that we commissioned from an artist we like, named Sven. And, you know, we tried to get and we tried to, you know, we tried to get more of our LPs kind of involved. I think a few of them set up MetaMask and kind of, you know,
right? But that's part of the goal, right? Whoever wins that battle wins.
Yep.
It's almost like the early days of the internet, when there were multiple browsers, and then Netscape came along. You know, and Andreessen did Netscape, and it was over. The game had changed. There will be that Netscape moment. It's like when we were at started AudioNet, there was no streaming, and everybody told us we were crazy, right? Oh, you're going to be able to listen to any radio station from anywhere in the world on your PC. Bro, I'll just turn on my radio. I got what I want. No, then you're going to be able to watch any movie, anytime, anywhere, any TV station, any game. Bro, I'll just turn on my television. Have you not seen cable? I can get shit from anywhere. There's too much on. I can't even watch it. And back then you had to download, you had to have a modem, 56K modem, think about that. And you had to download TCP IP client. And then you had to download an audio or video player. And then you had to have, you know, bandwidth, which coming from a modem, or if you were corporate, you know, where most of our volume was, you know, you had to have a way through the firewalls at the corporations. All that hassle, and people still did it. And it's analogous to the wallets right now. All that hassle, and millions of people are still doing it.
That's a good sign, right? Yeah.
And it is a good sign, but now we've got to, the applications that'll have the greatest impact and be the winners are the ones who simplify that the most. So MetaMask, look, it's hard to understand what wallets you have and what accounts, how many accounts within a wallet, and you just use this wallet because that's what they wanted first, then you use this wallet. And I had, and then there's other issues. Anybody can send you anything once they find out your address, right?
Yeah, you got scammed a bunch, your address, right?
What's that?
Your address got spammed a bunch of scam.
Yeah, but even so now, if you have an Ether name, right, or whatever they call it, an Ether DNS address, right, or ENS address, and you put it up and it's mark.eth, bam, everybody's going to crush you. And so now you got the choice. Do I, cut and paste all the time, or, and so there's got to be some mechanisms there that prevent that. No, I don't want your naked picture of your old ass sent to me on Rarible, right? And so, I want to be able to deny that instead of just seeing it show up. And no, I don't want, somebody, sent me a fucked up ETH address, that I'm not even going to say what it said, right? And now all of a sudden it's got my address associated with it.
Right.
And so, you've got to, just all the shit you got to do to try to deal with that. So we're still in that learning phase, and things have got to happen, and adaptation has to happen as well.
The other thing is fees. I don't know if you've dealt with fees in transactions, right?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is. Oh yeah, let me transfer this. I'm just going to send, 1 Ether over here so I can cover the cost of that. And then just to send it is, this. So I was looking to do something today that was minor, and it was going to be $57.
Yep. It cost us 17. We sent out, these NFTs to all our LPs. It cost us $17 a piece to send, these
crazy. Where does that money go?
It goes, okay. So this is actually a good segue because, right now, one thing that we're seeing happen, and I talked about this a little earlier, is Bitcoin is being adopted by institutions, right? And you're seeing
for value, not for anything else, just as a store of value.
Exactly, but you're seeing institutions put it on their balance sheet, right? So Square is buying 50 million of Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
And these companies.
Strategy, yeah.
And you're seeing, big people, Elon and these people putting Bitcoin in their bio, right? And it's a really powerful meme, right? And it's very simple. And in a world where memes spread like wildfire, right? Like Bitcoin, I think is just the best meme right now. And
I think it's there, right? It's like gold, right? Why is gold valuable?
Because people believe it has value.
It's a religion.
Yep.
And as long as people believe it in its value, right? Look, if the world came to if the country went to the hell in a handbasket, right? And fiat was gone, ain't nobody carrying around a gold bar. They're going to beat you over the head and take your gold bar, and it's still going to be useless. I'd rather have bananas, right?
Yep.
And so, and it's the same with Bitcoin. Yep. It's not a hedge against anything. It's not an alternative to fiat. It's a store of value, and it's what someone would pay for it. And that's not a bad thing, right? That's a good thing. That's what money is. Just what people believe is worth value. It has value. But at the same time, I think it's going to continue to grow.
Yep.
Because everybody has put their focus on it and believes in it and is not trying to transact in it. And you have that plus the fact that now you can wrap it, right? And use it in DeFi, and you get kind of the best of both worlds.
Yep. But so to finish my point though, and you asked the question, a good one, where do those fees go, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
So right now, the fees on Ethereum go to the miners, right? So the miners in the network are validating transactions, and they're getting block rewards and also getting the fees on the network. But there's a important change coming to Ethereum, which is called EIP 1559.
Right.
And when that happens, the fees actually get burnt. So there's a scenario. This is.
But when you say get burnt, what does that mean?
They go away. They're removed from the supply, right? So there's so
it's costless. The transactions will be costless, or you still pay.
You still pay, but the fees are burnt. So the supply. There's a scenario in the future.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the fees are burnt. So if I pay a half Ethereum, right, then I pay it, and it's burned to reduce the quantity of outstanding.
Exactly.
Right?
And so right now, Bitcoin has a good narrative. It's a
Yeah, 21 million. Yeah.
It's very strong, and I'm a big believer in Bitcoin too. By the way, it's not we're not tribal at all, but Ethereum, I think it's kind of unappreciated right now that Ethereum has all the usage. So there's way more happening on Ethereum, right? That's obvious.
Now you're seeing the price now, right? Now the price is going up because people need to buy Ethereum in one manner or another just to do all these transactions.
Yep. But Bitcoin has the scarcity narrative, right? So there's 21 million Bitcoin. And one of the things about Ethereum is that the money supply is still kind of up in the air, right? And it's not set in stone. And, there's this narrative that there's infinite supply, right? So, it'll keep being.
It's like Dogecoin, right?
Yeah. But, what's coming with ETH 2.0, the monetary policy is going to be cemented, and EIP 1559 is coming to burn transaction fees. So there's a scenario in the future where.
So what will it be cemented at? When and what?
So there'll be I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's there'll be a 3% inflation rate, right? Infinitely. But that'll be offset by the fees that are burnt. So there's actually a scenario where the inflation on ETH, if it keeps being widely used, is negative, and ETH becomes more scarce than Bitcoin.
Yeah, and how many are outstanding on Ethereum right now? Like 114 million? Did I read?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a 5x, 6x, 7x, right? And so we're not there yet. So a lot of people like to gauge it, relatively speaking, right? The ratio.
Yep.
And so 1,600 or whatever it was today, versus 1 versus 20 versus the. So it's interesting, and utilization, and I think that has a lot to do. People are starting to do that math and realize that even if you take a percentage and burn that to create the ratio. It's still interesting, but the question becomes, why the 3% inflationary?
That was determined by the community, right? So I think that's just something that the community kind of agreed on, and so it's going to be interesting. Like I think there's a possible scenario that's under appreciated right now, where the narrative, the investment narrative for ETH improves a lot, right? Because right now it's just, Bitcoin is this institutional narrative that people get. Ethereum is this platform for adoption. And there's still a lot of questions about ETH as a store of value and an investment, right? But, we believe that there's a strong possibility that, when these changes come, people are going to look and see, look, Ethereum is more widely used than Bitcoin, and it's more scarce. Now there's people that are going to say, well, it's more centralized, right? Because you have Vitalik, you have a small number of people that do have a lot of power in the system, and Satoshi's gone, and Bitcoin is more decentralized, right? So that's another question that
that goes away. That's for the people. That's like the early days of the internet, where people argued about different protocols, right?
Yeah.
You don't even know who those people are.
Yeah.
Right. They're long gone, and there used to be tons of arguments about this or that. But it's going to come down to simplicity. Who can simplify it the most, and applications, right? There really aren't applications for Bitcoin, whenever it was in 2017, when they went to the small block size and went away from the desire to be a transactional currency, and I don't know, if Bitcoin Cash has any, upside, or any of the others do. But it'll, whoever becomes the Netscape of Ethereum, or even just crypto in general, is going to have a lot of upside.
Yep. Yeah. So I think, we're always thinking of what's next as well. Obviously a lot of exciting stuff happening on Ethereum, but, just like kind of Bitcoin was first, and then came along Ethereum to kind of innovate on some of the ideas of Bitcoin. I think there's a big question in the space now of like, what comes next, right? And I think we've talked a little bit about Polkadot. I'm curious, kind of your thoughts on that, particularly related to a post you wrote 15 years ago, right, about governance and whether you really own, a stock, right, which is obviously relevant in the Robinhood stuff. But I think it's also relevant in crypto right now because, when you own Bitcoin and you own ETH right now, it's kind of an asset that you own as a store of value, but it doesn't give you any rights. And so might a lot of value in the future be accrued to assets that you own that also give you voting rights, right? And that's
go the other way around.
Sorry?
I think that's the exact wrong way that it'll go.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. But
Okay.
Here's what I've learned. I wrote a post 15 years ago saying the stock is nothing. A stock that doesn't pay dividends is just like a baseball card. If you put a share of stock on a desk and a baseball card on a desk, 15 years from now, it's going to be worth what someone will pay for it as a collectible, effectively. And back in the day, if you read about the early days of the stock market, it basically was an expectation that a stock would pay a dividend. That the companies that went public were the ones that could pay dividends because they were the most successful, and the sign of success was paying a dividend. That's just not the case anymore. Then we went to the perspective that you took your excess cash or available cash and you continued to invest in the company, and that worked for a long time. But then they stopped. There was a time up until 1982, and I just found this out recently, where stock buybacks were illegal. Right? You weren't allowed to buy back your stock. That was considered market manipulation. Then after 1982, that changed. And so also not long after that, companies kept on issuing themselves options after option after option, inflating the number of shares outstanding. So they had to try to burn them by buying them back, right? And so now you see all these companies playing these little legal manipulation games. And they don't go to your shareholders and say, what do you want us to do? They may have shareholder meetings, but they may have two classes of stock. They may have, so many shareholders or so many shares outstanding that there's just no way for they don't care what the individual shareholder says. Right. Warren Buffett is the exception that proves the rule, right? He brings in his shareholders and talks to them and listens to them, or at least talks to them. And what I've learned is that all these years, nobody complained. Nobody said, oh, that's horrible. We have no say as shareholders. You watch me on Shark Tank. If I buy shares of your stock, I want say in the company, right? You're going to listen to me. Yeah. And, when you invest as an investor, you want to have some influence in that company. If you take on investors as a private company, chances are those buyers of your equity are going to have some influence. In the public markets, we've gone away from that completely. So the reason I say I don't know that in the crypto ethos, having that influence is important, right? Everybody was DAO, right? Where everybody wants to have a say and they want to be able to influence and vote. And I think there'll be a role for that. But I think for that big consumer play, that there won't be a big role for it, because most people just want to know that they're going to make money. They don't want to have to think about, what should I vote on, this or that. And so I think that will be more prevalent, but there'll be a role for the Polkadot for applications where you want those. And I'll give you a perfect example. If we were to try to cryptotize what happened with Wall Street Bets and those companies, right? Right now, you kind of have the wisdom of the crowd, if you will, right? Or the impact of the crowd with potentially millions of people buying these shares of stock and moving the stock. Well, imagine whether it's Polkadot or somebody else, where you over collateralize, but you had, let's just say for every $200 any individual investor put in, they got $100 worth of stock, because you have to be able to deal with variance in the stock price. But then everybody got a vote in what you were going to buy, or you could assign your voting rights to somebody else that you trust or believe, and they could aggregate them, right? And make those decisions. And the group decides how often they'll vote. Right? Is it by the minute, by the hour, by the week, whatever it may be? Now, if Wall Street Bets had that tool available to them, and it was all on the blockchain and everybody got to see and people could sell their rights into the group, Polkadot and somebody like that would be a great authority for doing that. Yeah. So there will be applications that will make it work. Because I see that as the future. 5 years from now, that'll be the type of conversation that'll be happening in Wall Street Bets. It might be Wall Street Polkadot, right? you know, where that's what's happening.
No, for sure. I mean, I think, yeah, it's interesting that, yes, for so long, people, shareholders haven't cared, right, about their rights, but it does feel like there's this kind of just wave in the world of like individual empowerment, and Wall Street Bets is a good example of that. It's like, these people online can take control and have more power, and I feel like
Out of the big guy, yeah.
Yep.
And so, no question, there's going to be a subsegment of people who want to do that. And that percentage is going to grow, particularly if you can make money staying at home, and particularly if there's profits in the crowd, right? Excuse me. It's just not organized right now. And that's the point we're both making, right? So once you can organize that power, it gets even more powerful. And blockchain, regardless of whose it is, it's going to be huge for that.
Governance, it's like people have been excited in crypto about governance for a while, and there's been a bunch of kind of governance projects. The one thing though that is kind of consistent with your point is that the engagement on voting has been very low so far. So one interesting thing though about kind of Polkadot and their governance module is there's a council, right? And so the council is the kind of main decision-making body, and the dot holders can vote in this council to make decisions. And the council doesn't have autonomous power. So if the community, is strongly against something that they're trying to get passed, it can't happen.
That's why I said you can assign your voting rights to somebody else.
Exactly.
And so, there's certainly going to be applications. But that's like anything else. It's like going back to the internet again. There's different ways that people use the internet, and it's evolved. And, as new features come up and new technology is created, it'll evolve as well. There, back in the day, there wasn't wireless. There weren't mobile phones, and then the game changed.
Got it. All right, we're monitoring the chat box if anyone has questions, but I've got a few more. We could talk all day, but one question I have, probably people in crypto have right now. I mean, you famously timed the bubble perfectly, right? And I'm curious, what gave you the conviction to do that, right? Was it?
Two things. One, after I sold my first company, I traded stocks and actually created a hedge fund that I sold within 90 days because, I took my track record of trading stocks after I sold the company. And I mean, literally all the big name analysts at that point in time, anytime there was a question about a technology, they would call me because I had installed, all the routers and bridges, the Wellfleets, the Synoptics, for old timers. And so I knew the products intimately. And they didn't know what they were talking about. So I was able to just crush it. And I had seen hot stocks and hot categories explode and then crash. And so I didn't need to see it again. So that was one. And two, how much money did I need? There were a lot of people saying, oh yeah, you could have made this. And like right after I collared and told people I had hedged, they were like, you idiot, Yahoo stock just went up another X number of bucks. And I'm like, okay, I'll be an idiot on my G5. You guys worry about those extra dollars. I'm happy with what I have. So it's more just, experience, having seen this happen before, and just trying not to be greedy. As long as I had the B next to my name, I was happy as a clam.
I think that's good advice for people in crypto right now, right? I think there's a lot of that. And, just like the dot-com bubble, right? I think there will be some huge long-term winners, and there will be a lot of,
There's going to be relocations. There's no question. I mean, look, again, there were a lot of companies that popped up in the, 1994, 95, 96 that people thought were the surefire winners that bit the dust. And there were people who questioned Amazon, and it went down to $5 after being up at 400 or whatever. And they obviously turned around, and then Yahoo was not able to. Yahoo was, and the difference was Jeff Bezos wasn't worried about his stock price, and the Yahoo board was.
Yep. Got it. Okay. What else? What else are you, you're poking around on crypto a lot. What else are you interested in or curious about?
To me, I like the NFT space, obviously, and, with what you guys are doing with OpenSea, Rare, Mintable, etc. Simply because, like I said earlier, I've got digital content is what Gen Z, younger millennials value the most. And there are going to be better ways to convey that, own it, and transfer ownership and resell it and create marketplaces than we're seeing right now. And there's a lot of things that are digital. I gave the example of tickets, other than the obvious like movies and music and audio, that I think will have value. I mean, every podcaster should be offering, you know, a licensed version, right? You know how you can convey copyright, you know, a limited conveyance of copyright for commercial use, you know, just so many different ways that there are to start thinking differently about how digital goods are created, originated, and resold.
Yeah. And you're more excited. We've talked a little bit about this too. You're more excited, it seems right now, of kind of digital goods in like a Web 2 world of, you know, like, you know, 2D on Instagram and things like that versus VR, right?
Totally different. Okay, so you don't know this, but I have a patent or patent pending in virtual reality. And so I've done a lot with VR. And to me, like I had this exact same conversation with Intel a couple years ago. Until there's a day-to-day use case for VR, it's going to be, you know, some games that kids think are cool that they play every now and then, and some commercial applications, medical applications, which is what my patent pending's in, you know, that create a lot of value. You know, so with my thing, it was for people who have damaged vestibular systems, using a VR environment to sanitize them and make them normalize them. So I don't see VR being a ubiquitous type application for a long time. And it's not so much about, you know, the technical ability or whether it's attached to a PC or, you know, whether it's owned by Facebook or not. You know, it's more, there's just not an application that you need to use it for every day. And I tried to get Intel, and as I tried to convey that to Intel, I said, look, the best application that could get people to use it all the time is it's the best way to privately watch anything you want on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, right? You can be on a plane, you can be laying in bed next to your wife with your headphones on, and it's a great experience that's getting better and better and better. It's not great yet, but it's getting better and better and better. And my kids, like I'll do social stuff with my kids who are 11, 14, and 17, but they're, you know, even with their friends, they're not trying to use it every day. Yeah. It's like if someone brings it up. And so it's not a technological impediment that's keeping it, that's holding it back. You know, it's a use case application that's holding it back. Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about virtual goods to try to put it on, I forget all the different virtual cities and stuff like that. My Life, I forget what it was called. You know, a lot of them have been tried, and what ends up happening is you get dominant players who try to take over the whole community. Anytime you're in an avatar type world, you know, so you get the heavy players who influence the community to the point where it excludes others. And it's kind of like what you've seen on Clubhouse to a certain extent. Clubhouse is exploding, but you've got the hardcores, right, who take ownership of it and push it to other groups. And that's not necessarily bad. It helps to grow in actuality, but, you know, for VR, because you want it to be so personal, that makes it very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, you could be right. I hope you're wrong. Our most recent investment was in a company called Webverse, which is doing, you know, web VR and trying to create a virtual world that people can port their NFTs into and show them off. And I agree with you on traction, but there, you know, VR chat on Oculus is, I think, the most widely used app right now in terms of MAUs, right? And it's not a crazy number, but people are hanging out in there and engaging.
You'll see that in all communities, right? We see it with the Mavericks on Mavs chat, right, or Interact. Yeah. You're going to get some number of people who just, this is my space, right? Yep. And then they take ownership of it and they come back because there's truly a sense of community, whether it's 2D, 3D, VR, whatever it is. And then it's hard to grow from there. Mm-hmm. And when it starts to grow, the originals, you know, that were their core that got you going, get mad because of all the newbies coming in trying to change the community. And so there's a lot of issues that are kind of common across all communities that are created. Again, not to say it won't work, but it's going to take some time. But in terms of using virtual, collecting virtual goods or stuff, like I gave an interview yesterday on a sports station, and we're talking Mavs and talking about collecting cards. You know, I've got cards that I bought and collect with my son, and you know, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so the old ABA John Brisker card, and
I got a Tyler Hero right here.
There you go, baby. You know, and if you collected cards at all, here's my Luca, you know, nice. 77. But when you collect cards, you know that there's a hassle that's through the roof, right? If you want to collect enough cards, you got to deal with storage, you got to deal with, you know, keeping the quality of it, keep it from getting damaged. You got to get it graded if you really want to worry about value, and that's very subjective. And then if you want to price it, you've got to potentially put it up there in the marketplace, and then you've got to physically ship it. And then there's so many.
It's a horrible UX. If you want to just, you know, I like Tyler Hero, right? I just want to bet on him and get exposure to him, and it's not.
Yeah, and that's why Topshots is good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the moments, once you realize that it's just like you said, if you're past the touch and feel, I mean, you know, I love Luca, but I can't remember the last time I sat here like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think about it all the time. Oh shit, I got these in this drawer. This is going to get messed up really damn fast if, you know, something goes wrong here. Whereas I have none of those hassles. I have the sense of ownership that you talk about with the Moment or other sports related NFTs, with zero of the hassles, plus other than the transaction costs, you know, I can buy it in a second, I could price it in a second, I can offer it for bids and put it on the marketplace and sell or not sell, I can sell it. I mean, it's just like that, you know, again, setting aside the transaction fees, which are crazy, and, you know, and that is so much better. And it's harder for someone my age to recognize that because, you know, we grow up physical, touch things, you know, but digital natives, you know, crypto natives, this is better. Yeah. And they're right. And as more and more people start to realize that, those values are going up. Now, you know, Flow and Topshot, they've got issues just because of scaling. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know that it's purely scaling, because it's not like they have millions of users on there at any one time. Yep. You know, so just trying to build a blockchain app that all of a sudden, you know, most blockchain apps, you got time to grow with it, right? You don't get that immediate rush. And you tell yourself, well, that's a good problem to have, and I'll deal with it when it happens. But then when it happens, you know, whether you're Robinhood, not that that's blockchain, or, you know, Flow and Dapper and Topshot, then you've got your challenges.
Yep, for sure. All right, man, we're a little past time. I really appreciate you, you know, spending time with us. I hope
fun.
People enjoyed it. There were a bunch of questions.
I surprised you by digging in like this all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good timing. I think you hadn't been paying attention much for a while, right? So
I paid attention, right? But there was no inflection point.
Yeah,
there was nothing, right? Because like you and I talk, Bitcoin's not a currency. I mean, what do you think? Are any of these going to be currency?
I believe that, yeah, there's a chance that, you know, Bitcoin or ETH or some cryptocurrency becomes, you know, the reserve currency of the world. I do believe that.
Of the world, that'd be tough. Wars will be fought first, right?
I think countries starting to buy probably Bitcoin first, and then is likely. I mean, it starts with companies. I do think it's going to be increasingly relevant in kind of geopolitics.
We'll know when you see countries selling their gold reserves, you know, because most countries have them. And, you know, I think it's crazy that we keep gold reserves because they're useless, but it's just the way things have always been done. So when you see countries start to sell part of their gold reserve, that's when you'll know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when they'll know they're afraid. Now they're still trying to figure it out. And now it's still relatively small. And, you know, again, going back to the early days of the internet, government freaked out. Freaked out because they lost control of a lot of things. And then they stopped freaking out because it became normalized. And crypto will have the same thing. The biggest challenge, I think, short term, that will have to be addressed, and I don't think it's going to be a currency, because we'll get sovereign digital currencies before Bitcoin becomes done. Now, obviously, there'll be a conversion at some point somehow.
But people, I think people are past the point of trusting, you know, small groups of people to control, you know, a money supply. I don't know. They're
still going to have taxes, right? And you're still going to have to deal with taxes. And that's going to change the rules. And if the minute we don't have taxes, we have bigger problems than Bitcoin, right? And not that I like to be taxed, I don't, but you know, you still got to pay the bills for a lot of people that need help and roads, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, as long as the government actually controls taxing, they can control what they value.
They can still get their tax in a cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, right? Digital currency is, whether it's a physical dollar bill or a digital representation of it, it doesn't matter, because 99% of the currency that's dealt with in this country and most of the world is digital anyways. You know, it's going from my bank to your bank to their bank to whatever. So it's not whether it's digital or not, it's whether it's Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin or Ethereum, or you pick one, USDC or, you know, DAO or whatever, right? And that's going to be the question. I just don't see that. I think it's going to be a great store of value. I think it's going to be a foundation for that is just going to tear apart banking. I think it'll turn it upside down over the next 10 years.
Yeah. Let's see. It should be a fun ride.
Fun run, right? It'll be a fun run. I appreciate it, Nick, as always. I really enjoyed it.
It was fun. It was fun. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.